On a quiet December weekend in Los Angeles, one of Hollywood's most respected families was shattered. Famed director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were found dead in their Brentwood home. And the only suspect was their son. Nick Reiner, once known publicly for his struggles with addiction, was now at the center of a double homicide investigation that stunned both the entertainment world and the public. The violence was intimate, the timeline narrow, and the questions immediate. What happened inside the Reiner home that night? And why? This is not a mystery about who. It's a search for why. And the answers may lie in a combination of mental illness, emotional history, and a final, fatal breaking point. Welcome to Bad Things. Join us as we examine what most likely happened. The final weekend of Rob and Michelle Reiner's lives began with what should have been a light-hearted evening. On Saturday, December 13th, 2025, the couple attended a holiday party hosted by Conan O'Brien, accompanied by their 32-year-old son, Nick Reiner. For much of the night, the gathering unfolded like any other high-profile Los Angeles event, until things took an unsettling turn. Midway through the event, multiple guests witnessed a heated argument between Rob and Nick. Other guests have denied an argument ever took place, but Nick's behavior was described as erratic, reportedly asking strangers if they were famous and making others uncomfortable. After the scene, the Reiners left the party early and returned to their Brentwood home. Sometime after midnight, in the early hours of Sunday, December 14th, Rob and Michelle were killed. Authorities allege the attack happened in their bedroom. Both died from multiple stab wounds. The exact time of death has not been publicly confirmed, but officials believe it occurred while the couple was preparing for or already in bed. Around 4 a.m., Nick checked into the Pierside Hotel in Santa Monica under his real name. Hotel staff later described the room as containing blood in the shower and on the mattress, though police have not confirmed these details publicly. Surveillance footage reportedly showed Nick arriving alone. At 3:30 p.m. that afternoon, the Reiner's daughter Romy arrived at the house after their massage therapist failed to reach them. She discovered her father's body and called 911. Responders found both Rob and Michelle deceased. That evening, with Nick missing and presumed last seen at the home, LAPD named him the primary suspect. At approximately 9:15 p.m., Nick was arrested near USC after being spotted on surveillance footage at a South LA gas station. Police said he surrendered without incident and appeared calm. Nick was booked on suspicion of murder in the early morning of December 15th. Detectives searched both the Brentwood home and his hotel room, seizing potential evidence. By midday, news of the Reiner's death spread across national media, though police withheld official details until charges were announced. On December 16th, the LA County District Attorney's Office charged Nick with 2 counts of first-degree murder, citing special circumstances for multiple victims and use of a deadly weapon. A court appearance was postponed after his attorney said Nick had not been medically cleared to attend. 2 days later, Nick appeared in court wearing a prevention smock. His lawyer, Alan Jackson, cited very complex and serious issues, widely interpreted as a reference to Nick's mental state. Meanwhile, his siblings Jake and Romy Reiner issued a statement calling the loss unimaginable and asking for compassion and privacy. Autopsies confirmed that Rob and Michelle died of multiple sharp force injuries. Their bodies were released to family on December 19th, with friends including Billy Crystal, Larry David, and Meg Ryan paying tribute publicly and privately. By December 21st, reports confirmed that Nick had been prescribed medication for schizophrenia prior to the murders. Whether he was taking it at the time remains unknown. Investigators have said no other suspects are being pursued. Prosecutors have not identified a specific motive, though they've stated the case remains active. Nick is currently in custody, awaiting trial. As investigators built their case against Nick Reiner, the central question shifted from who to why. While the evidence pointed squarely to Nick as the only suspect, the motive remained unclear. Multiple theories emerged, from official narratives to speculative explanations, each offering a different lens on what may have triggered the fatal events of December 14th. Number 1. The official narrative. A son acts alone. Prosecutors allege that Nick Reiner killed his parents in an act of intentional family violence. There were no signs of forced entry or outside involvement, and Nick was the only unaccounted-for person in the house that night. Authorities say the evidence, including reported blood in his hotel room and his disappearance, supports a solo act. As District Attorney Nathan Hochman stated, "This was a shocking and tragic case. We intend to pursue justice." The legal theory doesn't rely on motive, only the act itself. Number 2. Mental health crisis. Nick had a long history of mental health struggles, and by late 2025, he had reportedly been prescribed medication for schizophrenia. Whether he was taking it is unknown. Witnesses at the party described him as paranoid and confused, leading some to believe he suffered a psychotic break. A family friend told the LA Times, "They did everything for Nick. To have it end this way is awful." The suggestion here is that the murders stemmed from delusion, not rational intent. Number 3. Drug-influenced violence. Nick's well-documented past with substance abuse led some to believe drugs played a role. A hotel staffer allegedly described him as tweaked out, raising the possibility of stimulant use like meth. While no toxicology results have been released, this theory holds that drugs may have amplified existing instability or triggered violent behavior on their own. Number 4. Family conflict and emotional explosion. Another theory centers on the alleged father-son fight at the party just hours before the murders. Publicly scolded and possibly humiliated, Nick may have reacted with anger that built into violence after returning home. One observer wrote online, "He embarrassed them. They punished him. He stewed in that." Some believe the killings were emotionally driven retaliation, not a psychotic episode or planned act. A final breakdown in a long, troubled dynamic. Number 5. Inheritance or financial motive. Speculation briefly arose around the Reiner's considerable wealth. Some wondered whether Nick, financially dependent and struggling, stood to gain. But California's Slayer statute bars convicted killers from inheriting. There's also no evidence of any financial dispute. Most dismiss this as a weak motive, unsupported by fact. Number 6. Alternate perpetrator, widely dismissed. A handful of conspiracy theories suggest someone else may have committed the murders and framed Nick, but police ruled out forced entry, no valuables were missing, and no evidence points to a third party. As LAPD officials stated, this was an isolated, family-related incident. No credible alternative suspect has emerged. When the noise of speculation fades and facts are placed side by side, the picture that emerges is bleak but not especially complicated. There is no hidden accomplice, no elaborate cover-up, no competing suspect waiting in the wings. What most likely happened inside the Reiner home was an act of catastrophic familial violence carried out by a deeply unwell son. A tragedy shaped by years of instability, intensified by an immediate trigger, and left unchecked in the final hours. Nick Reiner did not wake up that weekend as a stranger to crisis. By multiple accounts, his life had been defined by long cycles of treatment, relapse, and concern, stretching back years. Friends of the family told the Los Angeles Times that Rob and Michelle restructured their lives around Nick, prioritizing therapy programs, medication, and supervision in an effort to keep him stable. Michelle, in particular, was described as increasingly alarmed in the weeks before the killings. One family acquaintance said bluntly, she knew something was slipping. That context matters because it eliminates several alternate explanations immediately. This was not a burglary gone wrong. It was not a targeted attack related to Rob Reiner's career or public profile. There was no forced entry, no theft, and no evidence of an outside presence. The violence occurred in the most private space of the home, the bedroom, and was carried out with a weapon consistent with household access. Everything about the scene points inward. The remaining question is not who, but why now? The most likely answer lies at the intersection of deteriorating mental health and acute emotional destabilization. Nick's behavior at the holiday party hours earlier was not merely embarrassing or rude. It was described by witnesses as disorganized, intrusive, and paranoid. Asking strangers if they were famous, cycling through agitation, and drawing attention from across the room are not typical signs of intoxication alone. They are, however, consistent with someone losing their grip on social reality. That loss of grip did not happen in isolation. According to reporting by the Los Angeles Times, Nick had been prescribed antipsychotic medication for schizophrenia at some point prior to the murders. Whether he was compliant with that medication remains unknown, but discontinuation, especially abrupt, is well known to precipitate psychotic episodes. In such states, perception distorts rapidly. Loved ones can be recast as threats. Ordinary conflict can feel existential. Rob Reiner's confrontation with Nick at the party, while described by witnesses as a parental attempt to rein things in, may have been experienced very differently by Nick himself. What looked like correction may have felt like betrayal. What sounded like concern may have registered as control or humiliation. When the family left early and returned home, the tension did not simply dissipate, it likely followed them through the door. What happened next was probably not carefully planned in advance, but neither was it accidental. Prosecutors allege first-degree murder, which does not require long-term plotting, only the formation of intent. In moments of psychosis or emotional collapse, intent can crystallize frighteningly fast. Entering the bedroom with a knife is not a reflexive act. It is a decision, even if made under distorted thinking. The nature of the injuries, multiple stab wounds to both victims, further supports this interpretation. This was not a single strike or a panicked scuffle. It was sustained violence. Acts like that are rarely about escape or self-defense. They are about overwhelming emotion. Rage, fear, or delusion drive repetition. As one veteran homicide investigator told ABC7 in a separate case involving family violence, when someone uses a knife on someone they love, it's not about efficiency, it's about what's happening inside them. After the attack, Nick did not seek help. He did not call emergency services. Instead, he left the house and began moving through the city in a disorganized pattern, checking into a hotel, attempting to wash away physical evidence, and later wandering miles from the crime scene. These actions matter because they suggest partial awareness. Even in crisis, Nick appears to have understood that something irreversible had occurred. That partial awareness complicates, but does not negate the mental health explanation. Severe psychological disturbance does not mean total unconsciousness. People in psychotic or dissociative states often oscillate between clarity and confusion. The decision to flee is not inconsistent with illness, it is consistent with panic. Nick's behavior upon arrest reinforces this interpretation. Officers noted that he surrendered calmly, without resistance, and appeared subdued. In court, days later, he wore a prevention smock, a sign that authorities believed he posed a risk to himself. His attorney, Alan Jackson, spoke carefully but pointedly. There are very, very complex and serious issues associated with this case. Defense lawyers do not telegraph arguments lightly. The implication was clear. Nick's mental state will be central to what follows. Could drugs have played a role? Possibly. Years of substance abuse can exacerbate or mimic psychiatric symptoms, and stimulant use in particular can provoke paranoia and aggression. But drugs are not required to explain what happened, and there is no confirmed toxicology to anchor that theory. Mental illness alone is sufficient. Could financial motives explain it? No. Nick gained nothing and stood to lose everything. Could it have been premeditated for days or weeks? Unlikely. There is no evidence of planning, no attempt to conceal identity, and no coherent escape strategy. What fits best is a short-term collapse, a pressure system that had been building for years and finally ruptured. Perhaps the most devastating element of this case is that it does not feature neglect or cruelty by the victims. Rob and Michelle Reiner were not estranged parents. They were present, invested, and by most accounts, exhausted from trying. A family friend told People magazine they never gave up on him, not once. That commitment, born of love, kept them close, and closeness became vulnerability. In their public statement, Jake Reiner and Romy Reiner asked for speculation to be tempered with compassion and humanity. That request speaks volumes. It suggests that even in their grief, they recognize the complexity of what happened, that their brother is not a cartoon villain, but a profoundly troubled person whose illness collided with tragedy. The simplest explanation, stripped of emotion but supported by evidence, is this. Rick Reiner suffered a severe psychological breakdown and killed his parents during a moment of acute instability. He then fled in confusion and fear, was located within hours, and taken into custody without resistance. There is no competing narrative that accounts for the known facts more cleanly. This does not lessen the horror of the act, nor does it absolve responsibility. It does, however, place the event where it belongs, not in the realm of mystery, but in the painful reality of untreated or inadequately treated mental illness and its consequences. In the end, the double murder of Rob and Michelle Reiner is not a puzzle waiting for a clever solution. It is a cautionary story about limits, the limits of parental love, of medical intervention, of foresight. It is also a reminder that violence within families often hides in plain sight, misunderstood until it is too late. What most likely happened is the hardest version to accept. A son who was very sick destroyed the people who tried hardest to save him. Do you want to bring bad things with you wherever you go? Our episodes are now available as a podcast. Look us up on your favorite podcast app and listen to the most truth-seeking true crime podcast out there.